Satyajit Ray's The Adventures of Feluda, The Royal Bengal Mystery, narrated by Rajiv Dadia. Chapter 1. Old Man Hollow, Pace to Follow, People's Tree, 10:30, half again, Century, Rising Sun, Whence it's done, can't you see? Between hands, below them stands, yours it be. Feluda said to me, when you write about our adventure in the forest, you must start with this puzzle. Why? We didn't get to know of the puzzle until we actually got there. I know, but this is just a technique to tickle the fancy of the reader. I wasn't happy with this answer. Feluda realized it, so a couple of minutes later he added, anyone who reads that puzzle at the outset will get the chance to use his own intelligence, you see. So I agreed to start my story with it. I should, however, point out at once that it's no use trying to work out what it means. It's not easy at all. In fact, it took even Feluda quite a long time to discover its meaning. Although when he eventually explained it to me, it seemed simple enough. In talking about our past experiences, I have so far used real names and real places. This time, I have been specifically asked not to do so. I had to turn to Feluda for advice on fictitious names I might use. You can mention the place was near the border of Bhutan. There's no harm in that, Feluda said. But you can change its name to Lakshmanbari. The chief character might be called Mr. Sinha-Roy. Many old zamindar families used to have that name. In fact, some of them originally came from Rajputana. They came to Bengal and joined the army of Todarmal to fight the Pathans. Then they simply stayed on, and their descendants became Bengalis. I am doing what Feluda told me to do. The names of places and people are fictitious, but not the events. I shall try to relate everything exactly as I saw or heard it. The story began in Calcutta. It was Sunday, 27th May. The time was 9:30 a.m. My summer holidays had started. Of late, the maximum temperature had hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit, so I was keeping myself indoors, pasting stamps from Bhutan into my stamp album. Feluda had recently finished solving a murder case, that is, catching the culprit by using a common pin as a clue, which had made him quite famous. He had also been paid a fat fee. At this moment, he was resting at home, stretched out on a divan, reading Thor Heyerdahl's Aku Aku. A minute later, Jatayu turned up. Lal Mohan Ganguly, alias Jatayu. The writer of immensely popular crime thrillers had started visiting us at least twice a month. The popularity of his novels meant that he was pretty well off. As a matter of fact, he was once rather proud of his writing prowess. But when Feluda pointed out dozens of factual errors in his books, Lal Mohan Babu began to look upon him with a mixture of respect and admiration. Now, he got his manuscripts corrected by Feluda before passing them on to his publisher. Today, however, he was not carrying a sheaf of papers under his arm, which clearly meant that there was a different reason for his visit. He sat down on a sofa, took out a green-faced towel from his pocket, wiped his face with it, and said, without looking at Feluda, "Would you like to see a forest, Felu Babu?" Feluda raised himself a little, leaning on his elbow. "What is your definition of a forest?" "The same as yours, Felu Babu. Cluster of trees, dense foliage, that sort of thing." "In West Bengal?" "Yes, sir." "Where?" "I can't think of any place other than the Sundarbans or Terai. Everything else has been wiped clean." "Have you heard of Mahitosh Sinha-Roy?" The question was accompanied by a rather smug smile. I had heard of him too. He was a well-known shikari and a writer. Feluda had one of his books. I hadn't read it, but Feluda had told me it was most interesting. "Doesn't he live in Orissa or is it Assam?" Feluda asked. "No, sir," Lal Mohan Babu replied, taking out an envelope from his pocket with a flourish. "He lives in the Duars forest, near the border of Bhutan. I dedicated my latest book to him, We have exchanged letters. Oh, you mean you dedicate your books even to the living? Perhaps I should explain here the business of Lal Mohan Babu's dedications. Nearly all of them are made to famous people who are now dead. The Antarctic Anthropophagy was dedicated to the memory of Robert Scott. The Gorilla's Grasp said, in the memory of David Livingstone. And The Atomic Demon, that is, which Feluda said was the most nonsensical stuff he had ever read, had been dedicated to Einstein. Then, when he wrote The Himalayan Hemlock, he dedicated it to the memory of Sir Edmund Hillary. Feluda was furious at this. Why, Lal Mohan Babu? Why did you have to kill a man who is very much alive? What? Hillary is alive? Lal Mohan Babu asked, looking both apologetic and embarrassed. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't been in the news for a long time, and he does go about climbing mountains, doesn't he? So I thought perhaps he had slipped and, well, you know. His voice trailed away. The mistake was rectified when the second edition of the book came out. Mahitosh Sinha-Roy might be a well-known shikari, but was he really as famous as all these other people? Why was the last book dedicated to him? Well, you see, Lal Mohan Babu explained. I had to consult his book, The Tiger and the Gun, quite a few times when I was writing my own. In fact, he added with a smile, I used a whole episode, so I felt I had to please him in some way. Did you succeed? Lal Mohan Babu took out the letter from its envelope. Yes. He wouldn't send an invitation otherwise, would he? Well, he may have invited you, but surely he didn't include me. Lal Mohan Babu looked faintly annoyed. Look, Felu Babu, he said, frowning. I know you would never go anywhere unless you were invited. You are well known yourself, and you have your prestige. I am well aware of that. What happened was that I told him that the book had seen 4 editions in 4 months. And I also told him, only a hint, that is, that I knew you. So he sent me this letter. Read it yourself. We've both been invited. The last few lines of Mahitosh Sinha-Roy's letter said, I believe your friend Pradosh Mittar is a very clever detective. If you can bring him with you, he might be able to help me out in a certain matter. Please let me know if he agrees to come. Feluda stared at the letter for a few moments. Then he said, Is he an old man? What do you mean by old? Lal Mohan Babu asked, his eyes half closed. Say around 70? No, sir. Mr. Sinha-Roy is much younger than that. His writing is like an old man's. How can you say that? This writing is absolutely beautiful. I agree. But look at the signature. I think the letter was written by his secretary. It was decided that we would leave for Lakshmanbari the following Wednesday. We could go up to New Jalpaiguri by train. After that, we'd have to go by car to Lakshmanbari, which was 46 miles away. Mahitosh Babu had already offered to send his own car to collect us at the New Jalpaiguri station. It came as no surprise to me that Feluda agreed to visit a forest so readily. My own heart was jumping with joy. The fact was that one of our uncles was a shikari as well. Our ancestral home was in the village of Shonadigi, near Dhaka. My father was the youngest of 3 brothers. The oldest worked as the manager of an estate in Mymensingh. He was renowned in the area for having killed wild deer, boars, and even tigers in the Madhupur forest to the north of Mymensingh. The second brother, Feluda's father, used to teach mathematics and Sanskrit in a school. However, that did not stop him from being terrific at sports, including swimming, wrestling, and shooting. Unfortunately, he died very young, after only a brief spell of illness. Feluda was 9 years old at the time. Naturally, his father's death came as an enormous shock to everyone. Feluda was brought to our house and raised by my parents. My own
Sample complete. Ready to continue?